Welcome back to the Pause Purpose Play podcast with me, your host, Michaela Thomas. I'm your expert on all things connection, compassion, ADHD, and perfectionism. And I am back here with the last part of this Spacious Adventure series. I have loved this series so much that I've created a challenge for you to also create your spacious adventure in the coming year. Not necessarily a trip away, but just to think about how you create a more spacious year. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But in this episode, we're going to think about what happens after you've come home. What happens if you don't even actually give yourself permission to go? So I want to talk to you about courage today. Essentially, I want to talk about the courage over confidence piece. That one of the biggest things I actually heard as comment on me planning this trip was, wow, that's so brave. Can't believe you're going to do that. I can't believe you're so brave that you're going to go on a solo trip on your own. And I love the word brave. I prefer it to confident because I don't think that I'm necessarily always confident. I think that I am endeavoring to be self-compassionate, but I'm not always confident. And I also think that courage and bravery and taking action in a way that is in line with your values breeds confidence. I think that when we do things that are a little bit stretchy, like the adventure part of the Spacious Adventure, we also grow. We also get new insights. We also have actual stimulating neural pathways in our brains. So, as they say, what fires together wires together. So when we think about our brain, if you think about the different neural pathways that constantly fire together, the things you always do, they become cemented pathways. They become wired together. So in order for you to have new growth, you need to create new things to fire together so they can wire together. So if you then start to think, who am I? What kind of person am I? What kind of person do I want to be? If you want to think of yourself as someone who has the confidence to go and do things like go on a solo trip on your own, maybe it needs to be reframed as, I'm someone who finds the courage to try scary things and do hard things even though I'm nervous about them. And when you start to pair those two together, I can be brave, and then taking that brave action, then doing something that is a little bit outside your comfort zone. When those two things get paired together, your brain will ultimately put them together as an association. I am a brave person. So yes, I appreciated that people were pointing out that this was a brave thing to do. But I often support women who don't feel confident, who don't feel self-assured, who feel quite small, or maybe sometimes even intimidated. Equally, I support women who feel like they can just impulsively go gung-ho and just like, oh, I'm just going to go travel, and then feel like they haven't put any support systems in place and then feel really unsettled and destabilized when they go away because they hadn't put the structure and the organization in around it. So I think it's about knowing yourself really well. What's going to facilitate for you being able to be courageous, to do hard things, to try new things, to be adventurous on your own terms, to live life on the wild side in what you think is wild and what you think is a little bit extra? What would facilitate that for you? Is it having the support system around you, having people who are your cheerleaders who say, you can do this, you can definitely travel on your own, or you can definitely do X, Y, and Z that you want to do? Is it about having the systems that makes it easier for you? I didn't just go backpacking, staying in random places in Vietnam. That would not feel courageous to me. That would feel reckless to me. So then that's not about being brave and going like, oh, laissez-faire, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to go, pick my flights and, see where the wind takes me. Like carpe diem. Like, that's not me. That's a level of stepping out of my comfort zone that feels just like raw, unsafe discomfort. And that's okay to acknowledge. You don't have to go through a lobotomy or have like a complete personality overhaul in order to do something that feels adventurous. The courage piece isn't about scaring the crap out of you. The courage piece is about a gentle stretch, like a broadening of your horizons, letting yourself expand a little bit, slowly, bit by bit. Because if you do that, it will allow you to stretch. If you pull too hard on a rubber band, it will just break. Whereas if you gently tug at it, then it will expand. It will stretch. So I think that's an important thing to consider. What's going to feel too stretchy for you? And doing that, allowing yourself that permission to create an experience that feels like it's wild and adventurous on your terms. So for me in Vietnam, that meant that I spent painstakingly long scouting out the accommodation that I wanted to stay at, because spaces really mattered to me. I'm very visual. I love beautiful spaces. So I didn't want to travel all that way, having this opportunity to be on my own and do the solo travel and to then end up in a crummy place that I wouldn't enjoy. I wanted this to be, the 40-year-old version of not the gap year, but the trip away. I wanted this to not be my 21-year-old like backpacking on a budget. So I found 4- and 5-star luxury places that I knew had amazing spaces. So I stayed in an amazing place in the lagoon that had water villas with its own pool, and, the villas were on stilts in the lagoon, and there was just watching the sunset there was amazing. I stayed in a place that was high up in the mountains in northern Vietnam, so I was literally waking up, pulling the drapes open and seeing the clouds. I cannot express how beautiful it was to have all of these experiences. And I know that I paid for that accordingly. But the good thing is that Vietnam is very affordable in terms of the luxury. So I wanted this space, wanted this place to be adventurous on my terms, because then it felt like I wasn't being recklessly brave. I wasn't being stupid. I wasn't being anything that my inner critic would say, this is too far. I'm warning you, you're pushing the boat out too far. Because I had painstakingly planned those things in advance. And that's not easy for my ADHD brain. So I had to rely on some support and some systems. I booked it anyway so I could see the itinerary, almost like a beaded necklace. Like, here's one accommodation, here's a transfer onto the next one, here's one tour I'm doing in that place, and having it all together as a string of pearls. And I visually mapped it out. I drew out on a piece of A4 paper, I drew out day 1, 2, 3, and so on, corresponding dates, and actually what I was doing on each day. And then I also left that on the fridge as my Spacious Adventure that I had, and put like little tick boxes at the bottom, because then the children could also follow along in what I was doing and they could tick off each day. And I drew out little icons so that it would be easier for the non-verbal 2-year-old, not non-verbal, illiterate. She can't read. She's not non-verbal. The littlest one could still understand what was happening on each day. Like, here I was going to go on a plane, here I was going to go on a mountain, here I was going to be on a long bus, and she could then see what I was doing. So it helped organize my mind, and it also provided predictability for the children to be able to see whatever picture I was sending from my experience, from my adventure. They could then see, oh, she's now there, she's now on that beach, or she's now up in those mountains, etc. And it really, really helped to organize my mind. So it wouldn't feel like I was going on this reckless, dangerous adventure where I would just be like, let's see where this takes me. I could allow myself to plan the bits that I wanted to plan and allow myself the spontaneity of the other bits. Like, I just want to get myself a bit lost in the city and see what happens. That's why I booked in certain things that I thought would really be beneficial, like having a walking tour, where I then thought I might meet some other people, some other expats or some other tourists that I can talk to. And that's how most of my dinner encounters happened. So they were the adventurous bit that I struck up conversations with people I'd never met before and said, do you fancy going to dinner together after we'd spent a couple of hours together on a tour, or, those kind of things, or 4 hours in a hot tub, as you may. But that's the courage piece again, right? Plucking up the courage to make myself go out on a limb, to take a risk, to be a little bit vulnerable. Those are the things that yield rewards. Those are the things that give you growth. Showing and proving to yourself that you can do these hard things when you allow yourself to have the stepping stones you need to that point. So to summarize, having the right support system around you before you go somewhere can facilitate for you to be brave. Having the right level of bravery based on where you're at, starting where you're at and moving from there so that you don't put pressure on yourself to be something that you're not. You're not lobotomizing yourself to be a completely different person with different traits and qualities. You are you. You can stretch yourself gently with compassion by having that spaciousness in it, allowing yourself and your brain and your mind and your heart, the person you are, to plan and experience on your terms. And nobody is going to be there to tell you off like your inner critic. So if your inner critic has a field day about it, that you're not being brave enough, or that you're being overplanned, or you're not being planned enough, whatever it is, it will find a way to find a not enoughness in whatever you're doing. So let it. Try to know yourself and know that the compassionate version of you, who's also in there, can soothe that inner critic and say, I've got this. You know, I'm just going to book the accommodation because that will make me feel anchored. That will make me feel like I have stability, and then we'll let everything else happen. That'd be fine. Whatever your version of that is, I want to invite you to come and join me on building a spacious year for you in 2024. We start on the 19th of March, and it's a free 4-day challenge inside a Facebook group where I'm going to do 20-minute training videos. So sort of like a mini podcast, if you may. But I will have a chance to interact with you all a lot more. I can reply to your comments, we can share ideas and tips, and you will have something concrete to do every single day that I will also be reviewing. I have never given anything like this away for free before, where you have this opportunity to work with me effectively without working with me. So I get to just see a bit more of all of you, and you can come and join me for free in this challenge that I call my Spacious Year, or Your Spacious Year, actually. So go to thethomasconnection.co.uk/spacious year, and you can read all about it. For those of you who already know that you want to jump on this spacious adventure with me in Vietnam, you're already there. You don't need to do any sort of 4-day challenges. You're like, actually, I want what she's having. Like, I want some of that stuff that she's been ingesting that's made her able to go on a 10-day solo trip to Vietnam, that's made her able to be, nominated for Inspirational Woman of the Year, Modern Woman of the Year. Then come along to thethomasconnection.co.uk/Vietnam and put down your name to show that you're interested in hearing more about this retreat I'm running in March 2025. So that rounds up my little 4-part series of my spacious adventure in Vietnam. And you can trust me to turn anything I do into a psychological lesson. This is what the Burn Bright ladies love about me, and I will make sure I do that in your free challenge too. So come along if you've been listening to the podcast for a while and you want a chance to interact with me a little bit more. This is it. I am basically sitting here looking at myself recording this. And I would love to sit and look at your comments instead, to have a conversation, to talk to each other about how we create more spaciousness and adventure without the burnout in our lives. So come along and go to thethomasconnection.co.uk/spacious year. I'll see you all on the 19th of March in the group. And until I speak to you next time, do take care of yourselves.